And we're back. We're already talking again soon. Wow. Okay, so listen. This is like listen, enough about you. Let's talk about me. I was born in 1959 and
Okay.
they didn't have no internet back in those days. None that we knew nothing about. And so my kindergarten, my first grade. Oh, what grades do you teach?
I've taught kindergarten through third, but most of my years were in first grade.
Okay, so I mean, you're really building the foundation. You're laying the foundation. We talked about it in the last episode, but you're really laying the foundation for somebody's life. So, so okay, again, I dated myself for a reason. Because, and it happens fast. But so the whole world's changing, and you got in. I'm gonna say, you know, you kind of got in the ground floor of this whole education thing, and you go into a classroom in Little House on the Prairie. You walk into the classroom and you got every kid in the village right there from K to 12 if they're around. But you deal with these K to 1, second, third grade. But now you have this magical box, this magical ability that you can go off and talk to hundreds, thousands of people. So let's let's talk about this. How you got started. I know you began it, but let's go deeper into it and these ideas. And you talked about your creative ideas, but let's go into it. I mean, tell me favorite episodes and whys and the behind the scenes on it.
Yeah, I people love and I like creating the reels about phonics, quote unquote rules. They're really patterns, they're generalizations. But I think those are the most fun ones because a lot of adults, they either don't remember all of those things or they were never taught them themselves. That's, many of us grew up with whole language where we were memorizing words. And so I really enjoy creating those because it kind of blows people's minds. Oh, there is a certain rule. There's a rhyme and a reason to when we use the C versus the K. Those tend to be my reels that are the most popular and most helpful. I know parents sit down to help their kids, and school says, just read with them more or tell them to sound it out. But that's not enough, right? If you don't understand the code yourself, you can't teach it. And so I really love doing those reels, and you can do them in, short 30 seconds, 1 minute and get that information out there and reach a really big audience. When I when I decided to leave the classroom, it was a really hard decision for me. I love teaching. I love the community that I had. I still have moments feeling guilty about leaving the classroom. And I knew that I still wanted to reach more kids. I couldn't just be reaching the kids who can afford to have tutoring sessions with me. I needed to be reaching more kids. I needed to be reaching kids whose parents can't afford to send them to tutoring, but the kid's still not learning at school. And this is my outlet to do that.
That is beautiful. I mean, I can know who some of your. I know the homeschooling parents must just love this treasure. Um,
Yeah.
how big's your audience now? If you don't mind saying how big your audience is.
115,000.
115,000. That is, as we've said before, you're in front of a classroom. You're talking to 20 kids. Sometimes they have snots coming out their nose. They do. They do. Come on, they're babies. So you could talk to 20 of them, or you could talk to a couple thousand people. And those thousand people, I like when you said like nannies, because so the nanny gets involved, parents, uh, the homeschooling parents, um, teachers. I like it. You're giving the teachers, you're arming them. When we talked about you being a ninja before, you're giving them little tools of the trade.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's important. I even get to connect with teacher. I was just DMing with a teacher who is in Zimbabwe the other day, and she was using one of my resources, and like that was it. Just it still blows my mind that I'm able to reach people also not just in the United States, all over the world. All of these kids deserve deserve to read.
That's the life of an influencer. You're an influencer and a teacher. You're a teacher and an influencer. So no, this is crazy when I'm thinking about how things are going, and we don't necessarily know what the future's going to be. But do you still tutor? Do if somebody needed time and they needed certain special help, they could contact you. Parents could say, "My kid isn't getting the C, and this K thing is like." Can you just go
Yeah.
over it? So tell me about your tutoring gig.
Yeah, so I have the tutoring side of my business. I'm fully booked up right now, and as of right now, I just tutor locally in the San Francisco Bay Area where I live. Um, I love that portion of it. A lot of people say, well, you could really just do online and focus all your business onto the online side. And I do love the online side, but I love having direct time with kids too. That's not something that I want to let go of. Children are so much fun. They're so much fun to work with. It's so much fun to see the light bulb moments. There are the hazards like the boogers that you said. Yesterday, I tied a pair of very wet shoelaces, and I don't know why they were wet. So there are those things. But at the end of the day, I still love getting that time directly with kids, and I think it like I said, it helps me in the online space. I think many teachers who leave the classroom go into, administrative roles or education sales, things like that. And it's so easy to lose touch with what it's actually like to sit down with a child and work with them. You can know all the phonics rules, but if you don't know how to work with a kid, it doesn't matter that you know them. And so I like keeping that tool sharp.
Well, yeah, I like when you said the tool sharp, but you have a lot of different things to, like, like you could be a great pianist, concert pianist, but you don't like playing in front of people, right? That's the old story. So you like kids, you got the technology, you know the phonics rules. I mean, you're a triple threat here. You're you're kind of creating your own. You're kind of creating your own space in your own way on doing that. So I'm a filmmaker in my plethora of spare time. So it seems like we're kind of like cousins, you and I, and so kids are cute because like when I was a kid, there was a show called Kids Say the Darndest Things with Art Linkletter. You know that? Do you really? I'm very proud of you. Okay, so of course you're a Sesame Street kind of guy, right? You've seen it. I mean, I
Yep.
know it was before all your time. No, you got some Sesame Street. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
So those were things. Those guys, Fred Rogers, Reading Rainbow, all of that stuff. So you're a pioneer, man. You really are. You're out there, so you can use. I mean, I like when you're getting inspired when you're talking to these kids, but you can also. I mean, maybe you don't use the kids on camera. Maybe you do. Maybe you use their cute little hands or their cute little voices when they're doing stuff. I mean, there's a lot of cool things that you can do that makes it a reality. So I know we've been talking about this, but I want to hear more about your favorite ones that you made and why you made them and the behind the scenes are like, yeah, I gotta make this and how do I do it? And I try to do things. So give us some behind the scenes dirt. In the life
Yeah,
of an
behind the
influencer, in the life of an influencer, down behind the behind the scenes dirt. Okay, I'm listening.
I mean, it's a lot of, setting the camera up, finding the right spot to put it, getting your ring light out so that you have some good lighting. I feel like I'm still learning about lighting. Um, Doing all of the different takes, trying to cut it down. We know that people's attention spans are not what they used to be, so trying to find the most concise way to say something, which is not one of my strong suits. I tend to be on the wordier side of things, so there's a lot of doing the same take over and over. Then someone's car alarm goes off in the background. Okay, I got to do it again. Think like you said, thinking of the content. I have times where I feel really creative and I have all of these ideas. I felt that way this week. And then I'll have 2 weeks where I go, I don't have any good ideas. I feel burnt out. I don't know. So I just try to lean into when I am feeling creative and make a whole bunch of content that can last me for a while. Um, Editing takes forever. That's probably my least favorite part of it is sitting and editing the videos. particularly the ones that I have children in. I'm not going to stop and start the videos constantly to make little clips when I'm working with a kid. I'm going to actually teach them something, and so it's just one long video. But when you're trying to put that onto Instagram, the editing portion takes a long time. Like I said, I think people have no idea just how long that takes. But it's really fun to post and see which reels hit, which are the most popular, which ones maybe don't. Unfortunately, a lot of the ones where I'm like, this is it, this is one of the best ones I've made, end up flopping. And the ones that I throw together end up going viral. And so my first viral reel, I threw it together. I didn't think it was very high quality, but people loved it. So I try to remember that, the content is really the most important piece of it. But I love getting to post. And, my husband just the other day, he said, I just can't imagine what it's like to post something and know that thousands or hundreds of thousands of people might see it. I have a couple of reels with over 2 million views, and it's hard to even conceptualize that that many people are intaking something that I've said. That's having that kind of audience is insane to me.
Well, you must make your parents proud, and your teachers. Your teachers must love it. It's a trickle down theory.
Right. Yes.
So, yeah, no, that is really mind blowing. And so, what I really appreciate about you and I really admire is that you have all of your skills and you've worked on, and you're pushing on these other ones, and you know, I'm really glad editing doesn't come easy to you, and photography and all the other stuff, because you got to suffer at some you got to suffer for your art, baby.
Right.
So
It's true that that portion is probably you're like that's the easy part for me or the fun or create, that's the
I don't know if there
part.
I don't know if there ever is, and I think the thing is, like, we're all fingerprints, we're all snowflakes, we're all our own unique, wonderful, great person, and I really appreciate how you're giving back with your talents, and you're pushing to the limit, and you don't, nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. So that's pretty awesome on that. So do you ever talk to your college where you grew up in school and talk to them about what you're doing? Are you like a superhero? Do they have a parade for you in your hometown? Float?
No, no, they definitely don't. It's actually been a little while. I did keep in touch with some of my professors via Facebook, but I think a lot of people have kind of fallen off, and so it's been a little while. I definitely still keep in touch with many educators that I went to college with, but I think that's a huge area where we have a big issue is that colleges are not teaching teachers the research back way to teach. And I mean, if we're not doing that, what are we doing?
Well, sister. I mean, that's our, in Hopeville,
Yeah.
how to win the reading wars. That's what we talk about. I don't know how much you want to go into that, but I mean, here it is. You're. I mean, I liked what you said of you. You taught balanced literacy. You taught structured literacy. So you're a scientist educator now. You've compared them. Um, so why don't you just give your slant on being a person who, in the last, over a decade ago, you were in the universities? Because if you know better, you do better, right? So we, the statistics, the science was coming in 10 years ago, but why does the schools not teach what we're beginning to find out is doing better? Why is that?
I think that's a great question. I think some of them don't know. There is a lack of awareness. I think especially in the higher level academic communities, I think colleges and professors can be very removed from actual teaching. And so I do think that part of it is a lack of awareness, which is one of the reasons why Hopeville is so important to help bring awareness to those things. I think some of it is politics. I think some of it is these professors and researchers not wanting to say, like, hey, we've been doing this wrong. And I think that might be the biggest reason, to be honest. It's not easy to look yourself in the mirror and say, I was teaching kids to read incorrectly and it harmed them. And that is the ultimate truth. But it's, again, it's not easy to say that. It's not easy as a teacher and as a college professor when you should be leading this. I think it's especially not easy to admit that. You don't want to look less credible. You don't want your university to look bad. And again, it's hard to admit to yourself when you're wrong, but it's the only way to learn and grow. So
I mean, I think if you're looking over and you're seeing that kids aren't learning to read, and it's easy to say it's those kids, or those kind of kids, or these kids are not in that neighborhood. I mean, and it's the parents' fault, or it's that family. Those people never do it, and possess all the weeds and say, oh, those kids, I'm taking responsibility for that kid, but not that kid. So in the science of literacy now, if you have, so you're a successful dude, man. So if you were to say, and you had a magic wand, and you could just be put in front of a curriculum advisor or a dean, what would you say? Come in, you're a nice guy because you tie people's shoes that are little kids' shoes that are, you're a nice, kind, person, and I like you. So that same kindness, these schools are, the deans and the people who don't make that right decision are producing more good intentioned people, more empathetic educators, people that are good people, but they're not giving them the right message, and it's hurting people. So what would you say to the curriculum advisors or the decision makers or the policy makers or the deans? What would you say?
I think the first thing I would do is share my own personal story, share some personal stories about particular children I've taught and my own journey. I think sharing those things humanizes the process. It was really hard for me to admit that I hadn't been teaching kids the proper way to read. And I just would sit and lose sleep thinking of all of the faces of those kids who I didn't teach to read properly. And it was hard, but it was necessary so that I could say, all right, I didn't do that correctly, but I'm not going to keep doing it incorrectly just because I'm not willing to face something. Children deserve way better than me being too scared to learn and grow. And then I would share the research. I think even now there's many more educators who know about the science of reading, but I think they still feel skeptical because we have been told for all of these years that what we were doing was research based. When I taught balanced literacy, I thought it was research based. That's what my college professor said. That's what my coaches at school said. That's what my principals said. That's what all the trainers at my professional development said. And so I think many of us have a very healthy need to, like, no, I actually need the research in my hand. I need to read it. I don't want to read an article on the research. I don't want to hear someone else translate the research, like put it in my hand and let me read it. That's something I've been doing a lot more of because one, the research is changing, so you want to keep up with it. But two, you need to know. And in education, there's many good research studies and bad research studies. You can find research studies to prove, quote unquote, prove many things in education, including that maybe balanced literacy is okay. So learning about the research, really figuring it out, analyzing it, having it in your hand, I think is incredibly important. My dad always used to say the research is only as good as the researcher. And so really knowing and being able to understand that and decipher it so that you are ultimately doing the right thing. I think there's not enough access to that research. And that's something I'd love to see change and get in the hands of people who are making those important decisions.
How do you access that research? Where do you go to get your research?
It's a variety. Luckily, I have a pretty good network of other people who have some access to it, but even I struggle sometimes to get access to research. I know that I can't remember the name. I can't remember. Oh, Nina Saha I'm on an email list with her. She's really wonderful. She has a PhD as a researcher, and she tries to get research into the hands of educators. And she has a website where you can access some of the research, and that's amazing.
That's great. Yeah, a lot of our educators do the same thing. Yeah, I've been doing this for a long time, and one of my earliest things, I ask the same questions all the time. I mean, I'm like about teachers, and I like teachers. I think teachers are these people who are empathetic and want to make a difference in our world. And that teacher dream of yours is a recurring nightmare for so many early educators,
Yeah.
and they got to become lobsters. They got to feel uncomfortable, but unfortunately, we've lost a year or two or three or four on these kids. So that is the tragedy that happens by the schools not getting involved. And hopefully, if we just keep the information on, uh,
You know,
we're gonna change things. So we're gonna change things.
that's the goal, and that's a big reason that I started my social media is it takes a long time for things to change in schools. Even I was at a meeting with a district that claims they've switched to science of reading, and I'm sitting there talking with the teacher going, yeah, you have not changed to science of reading yet. You don't actually have the training. And and that's a school district that is at least trying, right? And these kids don't have 10 years for school districts to get it together and make sure they're teaching properly. We need to get there, and we need to keep working hard and pushing to get there. But there are children in front of us right now who need to learn how to read. And so that was a big reason for my Instagram. I think a lot of parents aren't aware of just how severe the reading crisis is. And so I also want to raise parent awareness around that. They deserve to know that and know that unfortunately the reality is that right now, if you want your kid to read, you're probably going to have to step in as a parent. Um, I I also created an online course for parents on how to teach their kids to read because of this. Um,
What's your
so yeah, I mean,
what's your online parent course name?
it's called Thriving Readers School.
Tell us about it.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's an online self-paced course. It's approximately kindergarten through second grade level, but we know that many children who are older than that are still needing that level of instruction. So most of the parents of the kids in there, it's about kids aged 4 to 10. And I walk through the basics of how to teach your kid to read. It's not focused on the comprehension, vocabulary acquisition side, but on how to read the words. How do we introduce the letter names and sounds? How do we assess our kids so we know what skills they have and what skills they're missing? And then how to teach in, short spurts each day. Parents do not have time to sit down and do a 45-minute reading lesson with their kid every day. So it's how do we get the most bang for our buck in a 10-minute session where we play a game with the letters, right? Um, I have all those tricky phonics patterns and rules with parent-friendly explanations. You can find a lot of phonics on the internet, but the parent-friendly explanation portion I find was really missing. And so it's resources that are really geared towards parents who are saying, okay, I know my kid, I know I need to supplement what school is doing, or my kid is struggling, my kid is dyslexic, and I can't afford $200 an hour for a tutor. So
Second language learner, zip code. There's a bunch of reasons
yes,
why you say that, and about the parents. And I'm I'm talking about you right now, even though it seems like I'm talking about me, because I'm going to seem like I'm talking about me. Watch what I do. I'm gonna. So the thing is, the thing is, with these, a parent needs to know what to do. Here, you told a behind the scenes thing on the Secret Life of a Influencer. I'm going to tell you the behind the scenes thing on a Secret Life of a documentary educational kind of guy like me. So I never wrote this. This isn't the line that we use in the film. I wanted it to be in the film. Like, I don't know nothing about playing cards, but I know you have to play the cards you're dealt. You know, I don't know nothing about golf, but there's those clubs and those balls, and you got to play where the ball lands. So the parents, they're all different. The kids are all different. The situations are all different. Back in 1959, you know, we're gonna conform everybody to being all the same and make all the people with that are using their left-handed right-handed, and we're gonna make all the world a great place. Now, it might have something to do with science. We know that all these unique little fingerprints and snowflakes, you know, these good human beings that are uniquely different, we want to cherish that. We want to fertilize that and cultivate that. So to the parents, you know, you were talking about what you'd say to an administrator, and you have your site that can help out some parents, but everybody's at a different place. What do you tell those parents of how that they can, the advice that a parent should do, and this is a big question I'm asking you,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of parents and no two parents are the same. So the bottom
Wow.
line is, what do they do? What do you tell them?
I think the most important thing is to first figure out where your child actually is in their learning. And that's going to be different, and also to kind of remove your emotion from it of where you think they are, but actually use an assessment and some data to figure that out. I just had a parent I was talking to who's in my course, and she said, you know, I thought that they were going to be on this level of the course because they can read some of those words, but when I assessed them, they were actually significantly lower. But then I started teaching those skills, and their reading and spelling has completely turned around in just 2 months. And that's the story for a lot of kids, is there's foundational skills that they're missing, and you hit a wall and you can't move forward when you're missing those skills. So that's really the most important thing, I think, for parents, is to figure out, all right, what are their actual missing skills here, so that you can fill those gaps and know where to go next.
Perfect. I love that. We talked about a lot of stuff. What have we missed? I know we have, and I'd love to talk with you more. And we're gonna run into each other in person someplace at one of these conferences or someplace. Um, but what do we miss? What do you think you should tell us that you haven't told us already?
I'd love to share. I have a free resource for parents with the top 20 phonics patterns with parent explanations. So I'd love to be able to share that with people. Other than that, yeah, I feel like we've checked most of the boxes.
Well, I love it, and I appreciate you trying and doing things and succeeding with those things. If you didn't try, you wouldn't do it. So you are a pioneer. You are an influencer pioneer, and we love and appreciate you. And thank you for all the hard work you do.
You're very kind. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, my
Happy to.
friend. Peace. We'll talk to you soon.